Okay. My name is Wendy Miner, and my daughter asked me to tell a story of her birth, which was not a normal birth. She was born at a little over 6 months, and our ride to the hospital was horrendous. My husband had to keep me from pushing. They whisked me away once we got to the emergency room up to a delivery room where the doctor delivered my mewling baby girl. When he delivered her, he told me, "Don't get attached because she probably will not live." This he said to me as I was looking in the bluest eyes of the most beautiful child I'd ever seen. I got very angry and yelled a lot of obscenities, to which my husband heard and was wondering what could have made me so angry. And they took my daughter up to the intensive care nursery, and they sent me to another care facility because I had my own problems. And they went out to tell my husband, "You have a baby girl. She's in the intensive care nursery. And your wife, they're working on your wife as we speak." That was day one. The doctors didn't expect her to make it. She was 2 pounds, 2 ounces when she was born, and she went down to 1 pound,
14.
1 pound, 14 ounces. It was very tiny. My stepmother commented she had chickens bigger than my daughter, which didn't make my daughter very happy when she was a little bit older. As we went through each day in the intensive care nursery, and it was day by day, they said, "Okay, well, she made it through the first 24 hours. Let's see how she does for the next." And each day they'd tell us what could go wrong. And each day, before we went to the hospital, I had my husband call to make sure she was still okay. I didn't want to get that message if she wasn't. Well, we went, and we had 3 young boys at home at the same time, so juggling back and forth to the hospital, and home for the boys, and up to the hospital. Days dragged into weeks, and my daughter was in the hospital 68 days, only because, even as an infant, she was extremely stubborn and would not allow them to strap her down in order to feed her intravenously. Every time they attempted that, she would just quit breathing. So they told us that was between her and God. We named our daughter at about 3 days old, as we had talked. I picked a name Jennifer, but this child was not a Jennifer. And my husband and I talked and said, "Well, it's a miracle. Miracle we got a girl. And it's a miracle she's still alive." And my husband said, "Well, that would be a great name." And I said, "No, I don't think so. But let's drop the CLE and we'll name her Amira." So we named her Amira, which is short for a miracle. And she grew slowly at her own pace. She was never on a respirator, which was another miracle. And she made progress, not in ounces, but in
Drops.
drops. they would feed her drops of formula, of mother's milk, because she could not take more than that. Watching her grow, when she was born, her little legs were no bigger round than my thumb. And her head was smaller than the palm of my husband's hand. And he said his hands were so rough, when he touched her in the incubator, he couldn't feel her because his hands were so calloused and her skin was so soft. And we watched this copper-haired baby girl grow. As other babies struggled, she kept on going. 68 days later, we were able to take her home at 4.5 pounds. And we took her to the grocery store, and the oohs and the ahs over this beautiful little baby. And they said, well, how old is she? And I said, well, she's due next month, which got an oh my goodness. As she grew, and she was a little slower to grow than the boys, she asserted herself with no concern for anybody. She was going to do what she was going to do, whether it was crawl or walk or pick up lint piles and stack them in little piles. She was a very unique child, and I was told that we had to be careful of allergies, of all sorts of problems that could happen to newborn, to preemies as small as her. She might not walk. She might not crawl. She might not be able to talk. She might not develop normally. All of these might nots never happened. She was a tiny, strong, impressive little girl. When she was ready to go to kindergarten, I took her to the doctors and I told him, I said, I don't think she's ready. And he said, well, why? And I said, she's way too small. She was about as tall as a 2-year-old when she started kindergarten. But we never told her she was small, so she never took that into accordance. Everybody else was just a little bigger. She was normal. Everybody else was wrong. And that's pretty much how she went through life. She turned into one of the most amazing women I have ever known. She went from a copper-haired, blue-eyed baby girl to a beautiful blonde-haired mother of 2. Having a child that early is frightening, with all of the mites and the problems that could happen, also might not happen. When you have a special child, you need to have the faith that they are going to be who they should be, and let them grow. And I don't know what else I could tell you about her. Dear? Anything?
No, you did a good job.
Okay, that's it.